All right, back out of Young Turks. Cenk and Michael Schur with you. I'm here with the 197,000th most famous man in America.
Well, we're waiting for that to come in. I'm here with the 2,324th most famous man in America.
There's this funny website that Michael and I joke around about, famegame.com, and we talked to Anna about it on another show. And we check out every once in a while, and Michael's among the 200,000 most famous people in America.
It's you know how that warms me. It's great. Yeah.
All right, I'm like, Michael Schur. Well, you don't know Michael Schur, our guest host. Hello.
Excuse. What did you say my rank was?
I said 197,000.
Okay, 101,000.
Wow.
At one time, I was 21,000th.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you're in for a wild ride there.
No, it's true. I don't know what I've done lately.
First of all, you're skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
well, I'm not skyrocketing. It's 101,000. I'm trying to break 100,000. So
okay.
we'll see how that works out.
Okay, we're making progress. All right, now let's get to serious stuff. Good news today. White House is seeking to speed up the Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is very good news. Now, in the beginning, I was both skeptical and optimistic about this at the same time. So what do I mean by that? I was short-term skeptical when Obama came in. I said, knowing Obama, knowing Rahm Emanuel, they'll want to do this in 2011 after the midterm elections. But it's going to get done because it has tremendous popularity. Now the polls have it at 70% of Americans believe that we should repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Also large margins in the military at this point. And that it's going to get done, and so I'm not overly worried about it, but it is going to take some time. Well, as it turns out, I was right in the timing. What happened was Congress was pushing forward on it, and the Obama administration said, no, let's do it after the 2010 elections. Let's do it in 2011.
Yeah.
But as circumstances changed,
and as polling happened,
exactly.
Yeah.
What wound up happening is Congress said, no, we got to go now. Okay. Yeah. And so they pushed the administration harder and harder. And today, the administration basically said, okay, we're going to give in. We'll do it on your time schedule. We were going to do it anyway.
And Gates is doing that too, which is sort of impressive.
Absolutely.
It's not so much. I mean, it's the White House. Yeah, Robert Gates. It's not just the White House. It's the administration. It's the Defense Department, and it's the head of the Civilian Defense Department. Because that was when Bill Clinton tried this in 1993, and it was probably ill-advised. The timing. It's amazing that it was 17 years ago, actually, because it seems like it was something that happened pretty recently. America was a different place. I mean, that's almost a generation now. And to see this polling at 70% is encouraging about the direction of the country, but it's also encouraging to see the people that are pressing for this as opposed to what was happening then.
So on the one hand, you can get frustrated by Obama's usual incrementalism, gradualism. I'll do it, I'll get to it, but I'll do it later. I don't want to risk anything before the elections. And he gets pulled, kicking and screaming to some degree in that direction. But on the other hand, if gradualism and incrementalism always work this way, then I'd be in favor of it. Because we're going to win on this issue.
Yeah.
We're not going to lose on this issue, okay? And Obama said...
by the way, the incrementalism here is 17 years of incrementalism, because it's not like this is the first time that it's been talked about in that
right,
interim,
and to Clinton's credit, he tried real hard, and he lost on that. I mean, and he got a compromise that was the best he could do at the time.
Right.
And we didn't like that compromise, but given the politics, it really appeared that was as far as we could take it at that point.
Yeah, especially because it was really the first thing he did out of the gate, and it was unforeseen at that time that he would do that, and it seemed like, all right, here's this guy, and now he's doing this sort of what seemed like a marginal, change. Seemed extreme to a lot of people, seemed extreme to the military, but now that we've also seen how ridiculous it is when people are discharged based on their sexuality, and as we've matured as a country over 17 years, the timing for it is much better now.
Right. I mean, to give you a sense of the comparison between Obama and Clinton, right? And Clinton was a centrist and a triangulator and all that, and people get angry about it. But I always maintain it was different times that I agreed with his centrism at that time, right? But to give you a sense of how much bolder he is in some ways than Obama, he did that 17 years ago and pushed for it to go all the way. He didn't start with the compromise, right?
Yeah.
He started with, hey, let's repeal this. Obama, 17 years later, after all this change, after the polls are on his side, he still wants to wait some time, and he's getting pulled, kicking and screaming in this direction.
Well, yeah.
As far as boldness, he doesn't have it. But to finish the thought here, but don't get discouraged by stuff like that, okay? Because as frustrating as that is, change once they set this in motion, and the Defense Department is going to do more analysis and study it, etc. But once they say, hey, we're going to repeal it, it's over. They can't undo that. They're not going to be able to go back in time. We're going to win on that issue. And I think one of the reasons we're going to win is because there's no money involved, right? If there were corporate interests on the side of keeping gays out of the military, we'd be screwed. Okay, but there aren't, so we're going to win.
There are the same forces that are like corporate interests that were in play in the military, because the military is like its own corporate interest, and what they say is to their own benefit a lot of the time. So I think that there is a parallel to be drawn there. The other thing is, hard as it may seem to believe, when Bill Clinton took office, the polarization of the country wasn't such as it is now. It was easier to be a centrist because there was more of a center then. And after 12 years of Reagan-Bush, it was different than the 8 years of George W. Bush. So I'm not defending Obama here, but by the same token, I think to talk about it as a compromise, it seemed like the logical next step as well. I wish
it did.
I wish it had gone harder and stronger. But
let me reemphasize for the last time that if I knew we were headed down the right path and that we were going to get to the right conclusion, I'd be perfectly happy to be patient.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's what's happening on this issue, but that is not what I see on the other issues, and that's why I get worked up about the other issues. Now let's transition over to what we're doing with that army, and that's of course the battle in Afghanistan. Not going well, apparently. Congressional Research Service report out saying we're not training people nearly quickly enough. We're going to get this huge amount of money that's coming in now, except we don't have a good plan for spending it. They literally don't know how to spend it quickly enough.
Yeah.
And just about on every measure, we're way behind. Okay. And now General McChrystal saying that our first offensive in Marja, that was supposed to be, hey, this is one is easy. We knock them over and go, ha, you see how well we did in Marja? Let's go to Kandahar. And that was supposed to be kind of a PR effort. Now he's calling it a bleeding ulcer because it turns out it wasn't that easy. Even though it's a small town, they didn't expect much resistance. Now a lot of people in the town fleeing Marja because they say, look, we're going to, New York Times story on this that I covered a couple of days ago. We're either going to get killed by the Americans or we're going to get killed by the Taliban. But either way, we're getting killed, so we've got to get out of here. And another story today in McClatchy newspapers where they say, hey, look, the Americans rule by night, the Taliban rules by day
and night.
And the Taliban rules by night. So we're in a world of hurt here. And now, it's interesting that, so that's the story, right? That's one of the stories. Now, let's look behind the story, right? Why does McChrystal have a McClatchy newspaper reporter who does good reporting, right, in there as he's talking to his generals in the field, talking about how things aren't going well? I found that to be surprising. So yeah. I was like, because McChrystal is very PR savvy. Why would he call it a bleeding ulcer in front of the reporter, et cetera?
Well,
I have a theory, but you go
first.
I
mean, the theory is that the military has its own agenda, and that's how they get their agenda out is through the press. And if they think if he wants more funding, if he wants more troops, if he wants no pullout, he tells McClatchy, things are going poorly here. McClatchy comes home, tells us, everybody says things are going poorly, you got to support Afghanistan, and here we are, off to war.
At this point, the generals might be miscalculating a little bit, because I think there's a growing frustration among the American people. You know what? We're tired of things not going well.
So it's just at this point that the generals are miscalculating?
No, I don't mean war-wise.
No, I know that.
I mean PR-wise.
PR-wise, they are. I mean,
because they've been brilliant before.
Yeah. No, I think people are bored of this conversation right now.
Right.
And I think that the interest in throwing money at this problem doesn't feel as imminent as it once did.
Now, that's among the American people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right. In Congress...
And that's also not scientific. That's, to me...
right, but you see the polls and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But in Congress and with the Obama administration, that is not the mood. They're still throwing tremendous money at it. And I think what McChrystal and some of the other generals are doing is, oh my God, this is going to take longer than we thought. We're going to need more troops and more money. And so that's why they do the leaks. That's why they bring in the reporters.
It goes further than what I just said, too, because it has to do with the fact this is an election year. So McChrystal is saying, all right, you incumbents, go back to your districts and tell them that you didn't support Afghanistan. When I said it's a bleeding ulcer, your general in the field said it's a bleeding ulcer. Just go back to your district and say, I voted against funding for that. And that's part of it as well.
Yeah, and look, I think they're miscalculating. I think American people have had enough. They say, you know what, I've had that bleeding ulcer for 9 goddamn years. Okay, no mas.
Yeah.
As I was reading these articles, and then you've got the Congressional Research Service with their new report out, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, expert, obviously the top expert in this area. Do you know that we've spent more money on and allocated more money to reconstruct Afghanistan than we did for the last 8 years in Iraq? But if you think that's amazing, we spent more money than we did reconstructing all of Europe after World War II. And what do we have in return? A bleeding ulcer. So it's not working.
And what we're doing is we're just continuing the exact same boring plot line of Afghanistan for decades. I mean, this is basically whatever any country, any nation, any group of people that have gone into Afghanistan have been met with. It's a frustration. It's not like we didn't say that or we didn't know that, but we thought we could change that plot line, and we haven't, and because you can't. And we've gone in there and we've just continued the same story. It's been a bleeding ulcer eventually for everyone.
And, you know, as I was thinking about it, you know, what motivates these generals? Why all these leaks, and Obama yells at them, and then they laugh at him, and then they do more leaks, and et cetera. And why do they even want to stay in Afghanistan? And you know what it comes down to? I mean, this is comical, and I'm oversimplifying, but it comes down to penis size. Okay? They want to say, you know what? I want Afghanistan. I want Iraq. I am the general of all generals. I want more money and more troops.
Okay, but that's where I will defend them, because that's how they were raised. I mean, they're sent to do something, they want to do it. You know, I mean, if you're sent to rescue a company, if you're sent to manage a restaurant that's failing, whatever it is, you want to be the person to resurrect it.
But they're asking for more money for the sake of asking more money. I mean, look at the report that says they don't even know how to spend it.
Right, but they're compelled to ask for more. You're right. I'm not disagreeing, but the general's saying, what am I going to say? No, I don't want more money. I don't want more troops. I'm here trying to win this war. So
you're right. You're right about that, Michael. So
it's the culture that has to be changed.
And it's the ultimate responsibility of Congress and the president to draw the effing line. To say, look, I get that the generals want more money and more troops. They always do. They have in every war, right?
Yeah.
And they do now. But here's what I'm telling you. This is the money you have. This is the troops you have. Okay? Now, if you think you can't do the job with that, you have to be honest with me, because we got to pull out.
Right.
And if you can't do it with that amount of money and that amount of troops, and then you tell me you can, and at the end of 18 months I have failure, well, you're fired, and you're a miserable failure, and then I pull out, having lost so many more lives, so many more dollars, and it's your fault. Okay? Now, the problem is we don't have that kind of accountability for the generals. Right. Because everybody has to bow down. I don't know when America became, you know, led by our Caesars, right?
Well, it was called George Washington.
Well, that's a very good point. But look at what George Washington did. He said, I was a general, but I'm now president, and I'm going to step aside.
Right.
You know, that's not how we set this country up, right?
Right.
And we've lost that example somewhere along the line. And so now when the generals ask for something, we just, you know, we're like, yes, sir, thank you, sir. How much, sir? How, you know, he says jump, we say how high. And so, no, we got to take control. This is civilian democracy. And now here comes hope, okay? And in the most unexpected places. Tom Coburn, okay? Tom Coburn says, hey, you know what? Time to draw the line. So here's what we're going to do. You want to pay for all this extra money, $33 billion extra in emergency supplementals, which Obama promised he wouldn't ask for, right? Well, you asked for it. Great, no problem. I'm in favor of the war. Let's pay for it. I mean, very simple request. Not pro or con, not yes or no. Just, yeah, okay, but how are we going to pay for it? So you show me how we pay for it, and I'll give you the money, right?
Yeah.
And now, a lot of progressives agree with that. And now Coburn's pulling in some right-wingers who agree with that.
Well, I mean, you say it's not one of the most unexpected places, because Tom Coburn, from the very beginning, painted himself as, you know, fiscally frugal. I mean, financially conservative in the most, you know, in the most extreme way. So it's not necessary. It's only because he's on the right side, but it has nothing. I mean, it's not really surprising from a fiscal standpoint. That
I totally agree, and that's why, you know, I always put Coburn on the list of, as maddening as he is and as some of the crazy things he does, I always put him on the list of, here's a guy who might at some point do something positive.
Right. Okay. And he also knows his stuff. He's not just saying it for bluster. When he comes in and talks about healthcare, he knows healthcare. When he comes in and talks about markups, he knows markups. So you may disagree with him, but at least you're disagreeing with a professional, as opposed to some of the other, you know, clowns that are out there just sort of taking a side to take a side.
Absolutely. And, look, he'll frustrate us by doing the same Republican talking points as other people on, 8 or 9 out of 10 issues. But there are those 1 or 2 issues where he really acts based on principle, and it matters. So now here's a case where it matters. He can really build a left-right coalition that goes to Obama and says, no, you show me a way to pay for it, otherwise we're not doing this. And how reasonable is that position? Look, it's absurd to say, no, we should have endless wars and never have a plan to pay for them.
Right.
I mean, that's
the Bush doctrine. I mean,
yeah.
that's exactly what he ran against. That's exactly what we got tired of. And, he's perpetrating it now, or he may.
Right. And look, when it came to health care, they demanded that it be fully paid for. In fact, it cuts the deficit, the health care bill, right? So, and they talk so much about that. So when it comes to war, why shouldn't they have that same discussion? Of course they should.
War's the sacred cow. I mean, war is, you don't say no to war. You don't say, for some reason, we've been running scared. And, for some reason, we're running scared. There are 1,000 reasons why we're running scared, and we've done it 1,000 times. But the point is that this always comes to, it's really important what Cenk's saying about Tom Coburn, because it's very unusual that you have even a small coalition on the right saying no. And the Democrats have to seize this opportunity. The White House should seize this opportunity as well.
Right, and you can get real bipartisanship here, and the White House will hate it. But who gives a damn what the White House thinks? Because the White House is only good if they're doing progressive things. If they're not doing progressive things, they're not my uncle. I've never met Obama, and couldn't care less about his personal glory. Okay,
right.
I want to get to the right objectives. And this Afghanistan, based on everything I'm reading, isn't nearly working, isn't close to working. All right, let's take a quick break here. Come back. All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk Huber, Michael Shore with you today. And now let's do some fun stories. Sarah Palin over the weekend was in Vegas. I barely missed her.
Once again.
Yeah, it would have been fun to hang out. She was at a real estate convention. And
so I want to hear what she had to say about real estate.
Yeah, well, apparently you're not alone. So did other people, except that's not what they got. She did a speech. Of course, she was paid $100,000 and first-class flights and sometimes private jets, depending on which coast she's going to. But I believe for Vegas, it's just a first-class flight, top-of-the-line hotels, etc. And she wants bendable straws. Okay. Now, that's not that much to ask for, so I got no problems with that. So they pay her all this money, right? And she comes and gives a speech, and come to find out, she said almost nothing about real estate. And now people attending this speech were upset, and somebody called it borderline train wreck, and somebody else called it disastrous, right? And an industry blog said at the end, she mentioned so little about real estate, one passing reference to shopping centers and to retail real estate. Otherwise, nothing, just a regular stump speech about how Obama's a socialist, etc., right? He said all she had to say was something about carried interest so that she'd win the crowd over and be like, yeah, totally. And then she can raise a lot more money. It would have been smart. It would have been savvy, right?
And it wasn't just...
and to give us a sense of, something about real estate, right? That we didn't totally waste our money.
And where she was the shopping center convention. So she could have talked about retail. She could have talked about real estate. She could have talked about interest. She could have talked about loans. There was so much for her to talk about.
Just give them 2 or 3 paragraphs. I mean, it's just smart business, right? That if you're at that particular convention, you talk about their issues so you get them riled up, right? And wanting to support you. Yeah. Instead of, shopping centers. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, anyway, so back to Obama.
I go there to buy my straws.
They're bendable. So at the end of the industry blog, they write, as it stands, I do not know if she knows what carried interest is. Of course she doesn't know what carried interest is. You have any... I can't believe they thought she did. She has no earthly idea. But what amuses me about this is, good, you wasted your $100,000. I hope you're happy about it.
Right, and these are people who I would say generally, and this is a generalization, but I would assume that they're, predisposed to liking Sarah Palin, that they're in her party and that they support her, and the policies of her party have probably been more kind to them, and I'm generalizing there, but that would be my guess. She let them down too, which is great. So finally she's letting down the base.
Right. Well, and of course it's because once you get her in a room, you go, oh wow, she just doesn't know anything, right? Yeah. And that winds up hurting her. Look, the real estate group would have been better off giving me the $100,000 when I was in Vegas last week. Let me play some blackjack. Maybe I return a good return on investment for you guys.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
I'll split the winnings.
Yeah.
And as it stands, I actually won last time. Huh. Think about it. And you know what? You know who knows 10 times more about real estate than Sarah Palin? Well, I know twice as much as she does. Maybe 4, 6, now 20 times. What am I talking about? But my dad.
Your dad.
Oh, he knows 2,000 times more about real estate than Sarah Palin. He'd have lit him up.
But we all have something that we know 2,000 times more about Sarah Palin.
Yeah, I probably know 2,000 times more about
Alaska.
Alaska than she does. All right. Anyway, all right, now from one goofy conservative to another, we go to Rand Paul. Now, Rand Paul has been in a lot of trouble for a number of things lately, but one thing that's not getting enough attention is his views on the EPA. Now, he thinks that they're being way too tough on British Petroleum. He's, I think, of only 3 people in the country who thinks that.
I would say one person of the country.
No, they have, BP must have a lobbyist in D.C.
Right. But even he privately, I think, says, what's going on? Why is the government letting us do this?
Right.
But not Rand Paul.
Right. And we covered that earlier, and he says that they're being too tough, and Obama's being too tough on BP, which is unbelievable, right? But it turns out he's had a bone to pick with the Environmental Protection Agency for a long time. Being a libertarian, I'm not surprised by that, but I am surprised at the extent of his ideas on it. He said that if the climate bill became law, and it hasn't yet, and they haven't really debated it yet, but if it became law, we will, quote, have an army of armed EPA agents, thousands of them, and that they will burst into your homes and apartments to determine whether you're meeting energy efficiency standards. That is mental. Okay, there are no armed EPA agents in the thousands.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does anybody at the EPA have a gun?
I don't know if you're allowed to. I mean, the ATF is allowed to have it. I think some park rangers can, but I don't know. I mean, truthfully, I don't know if the EPA can have it. But this whole doomsday scenario thing, which is so not libertarian. I mean, it's not really in their sort of line of fire, that kind of thing, just to pun a little. But these extreme, it's so great to be hearing this. Now the focus is on this guy and these extreme sayings and these extreme statements that frankly scared a lot of people in Kentucky are hopefully going to scare more people in Kentucky, but that's what this guy's about. And to paint these pictures that that's what's going to happen if we allow this climate bill to pass. Now, I understand why people in Kentucky are afraid of some of the mining issues that the EPA has, and they're going to protect every blade of grass, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, the guy's a wacko, and he's showing us why he's a wacko here.
Right, and look, I don't agree with those concerns, but I get them. Like Michael said, look, you got to, hey, mining's my, my lifeline here, and as much as I'm worried about my safety, but I got to have a job, etc. Those are concerns that are legitimate, and we've had for a long, long time, and we can have good debates about that, and we should see how much government should get involved. But there are no army of armed EPA guys who are going to knock down your door and say, all right, what's your fuel efficiency standards or your energy efficiency? Where's your solar panels? Get down, get down. Okay, I mean, that's crazy, okay? That's nuts. I mean, to give you, and this is not the only thing, he's got issues with on the conspiracy theories. He goes on Alex Jones' show. Now, it's okay to go on Alex Jones' show. I don't know how much you know about Alex Jones, but he believes there's a conspiracy under every rock.
Everything is.
Right, okay. Now,
Jesse Ventura person.
Right, and I read an article where they say, oh, these are all the things Alex Jones believes, and Rand Paul went on his show and thanked him, etc. No, you can't do that by association. He just went on a show. He went on Rachel Maddow's show. Doesn't mean he agrees with everything
No,
Rachel
it doesn't,
Maddow says.
but right.
But, no, I know where you're going, but let me just say, he did tell Alex Jones on several occasions, I totally agree with you, and that I could not have mounted my Senate run without you, okay? Right. Now, he wouldn't say that to Rachel Maddow. And if you go on Alex Jones' show, I have no problems with that. But to say, hey, I owe all this to you, that's going a little too far for my taste. Yeah. And look, it's a minor thing if you ask me.
Except that he might be right. I mean, that's the other thing. It's going too far for your taste. But he does owe a lot to that. I mean, he's a loony, and Alex Jones is a loony. So he does owe a lot to that, and they've energized the base of loonies. Now, I'm not saying that every single person who voted for Rand Paul is a loon. A lot of people voted against Mitch McConnell, so they voted for Rand Paul.
Yeah, and voting against Mitch McConnell's candidate, I said on that day, I'm happy. I'd rather have Rand Paul win than that guy, even though Rand Paul's, got a couple of nuts missing.
And now that we see that he might be a U.S. Senator, we can sort of tell you why you might not want to vote for him. But going on a show like Alex Jones and endorsing him and saying those things, I think there's something complicit about it.
It's a small note that if outside of the rest of the context wouldn't mean much, right? But within that context, as a note of caution, I'll give you one more. Now, remember how Glenn Beck went nuts over Van Jones, and he once signed a document about 9/11, etc. Rand Paul's campaign communications director is Chris Hightower. Chris Hightower is a guy who believes in the 9/11 conspiracy theory, as does Alex Jones. Okay, so then when he got into all sorts of trouble because of that, Paul had to let him go. But the Paul campaign, asked by a local newspaper if Paul agreed with Hightower on 9/11, said it was, quote, a complicated situation with truth on both sides. Okay, now, again, for me, it's not an overwhelming thing, and you know what? Okay, he thinks there's truth on both sides. I'm not the guy to tear him down for that, right? But, I mean, according to the conservatives, that is heresy of the highest order, and that you should immediately be fired from any position for ever stating anything like that. So if Van Jones is fired for that, shouldn't Rand Paul be eliminated if you're a conservative?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just throwing it out to you. Okay.
Well, they might eliminate him, and they tried to eliminate him, so.
And it didn't work.
It did not work.
I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. Is he going to win or is he going to lose? You know what? Quick, go.
He's going to lose.
Oh, flat out.
Flat out, he's going to lose.
All right, look at that, Michael Short.
That's a Democratic pickup. You know, ding. Well, what's the you know? Well, I don't either. But also, just to stay in politics and sort of independent politics for a moment, Charlie Crist, the governor of the governor of Florida, has pulled ahead in the poll for the Senate seat there, ahead of Marco Rubio and the unfortunate Kendrick Meek, because of the fact that Kendrick Meek is so underfunded, and people have not been paying attention to him. I say he's unfortunate, but it's encouraging because it would be another defeat for the Tea Party and for the the crazy conservative movement if their guy who they anointed is undone. They're going to get Lieberman the other way, which would be great to see.
You know what? Look, the Democrats going to agree with my positions more than Chris is. So Kendrick Meek, obviously, in that race.
Yeah.
But I'm so tempted to pull for Charlie Crist. I mean, the way they threw him onto the bus, the way he's an actual moderate, I think, and that means, hey, look, you get the good with the bad, okay?
Right.
And and he will vote against you in a lot of things, and he will drive us crazy on half the issues. But he is a real moderate, right?
And anything to make Rudy Giuliani on Election Day say, "Damn it." That would be great. That would be
and to defeat
perfect.
Rubio and to defeat him with Crist and to get under their skin like that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and he's not a bad guy. I mean,
he's just not a bad guy.
He's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's a Republican, but he's not a bad guy.
Now, speaking of Republicans and bad guys and elections, well, we got another one. Republican Tim D'Annunzio in North Carolina's... D'Annunzio, sorry. Of course. In North Carolina's 8th District. He's in a runoff right now, but he got the most amount of votes when they had their original primary among the Republicans. Here's the problem. The local Republicans are saying, please don't vote for him. He's crazy. Okay, now let me give you exact details. Tom Fetzer, who chairs the North Carolina GOP, he's not some random Republican off the street, okay? The head of the Republicans in North Carolina says, D'Annunzio is, quote, unfit for public office at any level. Okay, apparently D'Annunzio calls himself a self-described religious zealot, okay? Okay, fine, but he's Republican, all right?
Well, yeah, perfect for the party, perfect for Congress.
Right, so that's not the problem yet.
Could be his slogan.
He says the U.S. government is the Antichrist, okay, and he told his ex-wife that he found the Ark of the Covenant.
Really?
He personally found the Ark of the Covenant.
Right there in the 8th District.
Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
So Fetzer says, quote, what he could do to the party as our nominee is secondary in my view to what he could do to the country if he got elected. Wow. If he got elected, for crying out loud, that would be a disaster. That's his GOP chair in North Carolina saying, please don't elect this guy. How much clearer did he need to be? So, given the mood of the Republican electorate, he'll probably win.
And D'Annunzio is now saying that he's officially calling for Chairman Fetzer to step down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's saying that Fetzer should step down because that's what it says in the Ark of the Covenant that he found.
Right. It says that like in one of the, we haven't, it's just all the way down there in the fine print.
And by the way, Fetzer's a bad guy.
Yeah, he should resign. He should step down. Yeah.
Oh, Republican Party, man. Good for laughs, that's for sure. All right, Michael, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
All right, Young Turks.
Just a lover who made it by. It's a great for me, listen to the fifth sounds of the disco 3. Ha ha!
First of all, J.R. Jackson, I totally see it. Okay, I didn't miss it. I didn't miss it at all. All right, now you guys ready? Another awesome article about the Young Turks. TYT's coming to your house with an army that is too strong.
Release the Kraken.
And Media Bistro has. Andrea Hammer has written a fantastic article about the Young Turks. Let me read you the title. Hey, how do you draw 250 million viewers to your web show? The Young Turks. You have to find your audience and be willing to take risks. And she interviewed me for it, and I kept talking about how the audience rocks, and we found the right guys, and how you guys helped us to build it. And it's a great article. My email box is exploding as we speak. People saying, how'd you do it? Your army is too strong. Oh, we're coming for them. We're coming. So check out that Media Bistro article. It's fantastic. And look, let's use the army for a good purpose, okay? I'll see your ass in Washington where we're going to put together a hell of a protest. We're going to have fun, and we're going to ask for our $13 billion back from Goldman Sachs, and we're just getting warmed up, man. We're going to take the fight to them. Let's take this TYT army and do some good with it, all right? So check out the article, and we're feeling pretty good about it. All right, rock and roll. What's next?
All right. Kendra Wilkinson's sex tape will be released on Wednesday by Vivid Entertainment. She says that that the footage of her sleeping around when she was 18 was leaked. She apparently didn't know anything about it, except...
Sure, it was WikiLeaks. Yeah, I know.
Except she's already received a huge paycheck of $680,000 for the sex tape, and she will get 50% of all profits.
I love that. I will leak this to you if you give me $680,000 and 50% of all the profits. That's not a leak. That's just, you just gave them the tape and signed a contract. There's nothing leaky about that.
I don't know why they think they can pull the wool over our heads. Like, why? Do you think we're that stupid? Like, someone leaked it and Vivid Entertainment came up to you and just randomly gave you more than $500,000.
Right. No. And you're already a Playboy model. So you're like, I'm a porn star, and a porn tape of me has leaked. That made no kind of sense, okay? Just say it. Okay, look, I do porn. And I get paid a lot of money for it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a free country. God bless. Then we're on your side.
In one of the scenes, she's with a woman.
Don't it?
Get it?
By the way, it's the most regular porn of all time.
I know.
The only reason it's getting hyped up is because, it's Kendra Wilkinson. She married that scrub from the Eagles or whatever.
Hank Basket.
Yeah, didn't he get cut already by every team in the country?
He's a nice guy.
He's a good guy. He's just, a little baskety.
Okay.
And she was with Hugh Hefner. Okay, all right. So since she's been on TV, people want to say, oh, yeah, let me see what she looks like in porn, which is understandable, okay? I get that, right? But otherwise, oh, wow, she's with women. Of course, she's a porn star.
Yeah.
Isn't that in the documents you sign in order to become a porn star? Is there any porn star left in the country that does not have sex with women?
I don't know.
Can you imagine? Yeah, no, I don't do lesbian scenes. Like, what? You're free to go, right? I mean, then you're fired. I thought. I don't know. Maybe there are. Maybe there are one or two.
No, they can't be forced to do lesbian scenes.
No, they can't be forced at all. But they also won't get hired.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? I got morals, and I'm willing to do facials, but a lesbian, no, that's against my morals. I can't do that. You're not going to get a lot of business in the porn industry, I would imagine, but I don't know.
I love the random analysis of porn. Porn stars, what they can and can't do. But look, this story is outrageous because of the amount of money she's getting paid. But I also like that since we brought it up, we can show her theme song again.
Oh,
as we did once in the past. It's the best theme song in the world.
I hope this is in the porn. If it is, then I might look at it.
She's hot, she's sexy, she's funny, and wow. Don't stop, get busy, we loving your style. It's just another chapter in life. Bought a new house after the night. No butlers and no maids. You gotta do your own thing your way. Go Kendra, go Kendra, go Kendra, go Kendra. You on your own now.
Oh, God, it's so great.
Wasn't that soft porn?
Well, here are my two favorite parts. When she comes out with this dance move. Like, I don't know what that is. The Kendra, right?
I know, that's my favorite part too.
Right. And then number 2 is when the director tells her, all right, now we're going to do the go Kendra part, and I need you to shake your tits. Okay. All right. Jump up and down and go Kendra. Go. There it is. And now here comes the shake. What? There it is. There's a tit shake.
I can't get enough of that thing. It's so funny. It's so bad, it's good.
Yeah, of course. But that's the thing about TV. Once you see people on TV, you feel like you know them a little bit, so then you want to see them in porn more. So it's all very logical. She's very smart. Porn, TV, back to porn. Make some money. Okay? That's go Kendra. Go Kendra. Okay? All the sense in the world.
All right, let's go back to some interesting stories.
Okay, all right.
All right, Mark Twain's autobiography will be released 100 years after he wrote his memoirs.
Go Mark, go Mark. Or go Samuel, go Samuel. Okay. You know what? Mark Sam's an interesting looking character over there.
He is interesting looking. No, I can't wait for this autobiography to be released because it's nothing but straight up juiciness.
I hear they're leaking a porn of Mark Twain.
Can you imagine? No, but supposedly there are going to be details about his steamy love affair with his secretary.
Don't it?
Whom he later hated for some reason.
Because they had a steamy love affair and shit went wrong. That's why he hated her.
And apparently that she once bought him an electric vibrating sex toy. Did they have electric vibrating sex toys 100 years ago?
Well, I guess they did. I didn't know that. Okay.
Anyway, look, he didn't want this autobiography to be released until 100 years after his death for a good reason.
Yeah, because it's got questionable stuff in it.
Of course it does, and I think he throws people under the bus. And
but now they're not under the bus; they're under the ground. So what difference does it make? That secretary's been dead for God knows how long, right? So it's very logical. And look, let me make it very clear: I'm an enormous fan of Mark Twain. I think Mark. You know how progressive Mark Twain was?
Oh yeah, for his time, he was extremely progressive.
Yeah, for any time. I mean, these days he'd be Maoist #1 on Glenn Beck's chalkboard. First of all, brilliant, hilarious, great writer, etc., all that stuff. But hated American imperialism and the wars that we started in his time about the Philippines, and he covered it, and he was one of the few guys who were covering and saying, what is this? Why are we butchering these people? What is it about? What are we gaining? This is madness. And of course, in the end, he was proven right about everything. But at the time, Mark Twain, what would he know? Yeah, right. Which is what they say every time.
Right.
So yeah, you know what? I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. And by the way, one historian described the autobiography as 400 pages of bile.
That sounds even more fun.
I know it does.
That's the kind of thing Anna can get behind.
I know, seriously.
Yeah, nothing but a bus station with people waiting to get pushed under. Okay, all right, good.
By the way, speaking of books, Michael Lewis's book is really good.
Oh, The Big Short?
Yeah, I like it so
told you,
far.
right?
It's really good, especially if you're not someone who knows too much about financial happenings. I mean, it's great because he knows how to write in a way where anyone can understand.
Yeah, and you get sucked into it. I'm telling you, if you want to understand what happened, what went wrong in 2008 and the financial debacle and why we haven't really fixed any of the underlying problems, he doesn't lay it out like that. He doesn't lay it out like, unfortunately like I do, right? Oh, we're crazy, the world's coming to an end. No, he just explains the underlying stuff, but he wraps it up in interesting personal stories. It's a great, great book, The Big Short by Michael Lewis. We got nothing to do with it. I just read it and loved it. And it'll give you a great sense of what actually happened in a very understandable way. All right, that's our random plug for Michael Lewis.
I know, seriously.
No, but he's a great writer. He really is. I mean, him and Malcolm Gladwell, they're crushing the field. Yeah, all right, what's next?
All right, a man in San Diego decided to propose to his girlfriend in a creative way. He tattooed the proposal on his leg.
Okay.
So there it is.
Okay. Yeah. What is he, a TYT fan? Of course!
He says that he made a stencil and then he used the stencil to tattoo himself.
Okay, did she write the of course? Did he write the of course?
I think he wrote the of course.
No, she must have written it, because otherwise, that's kind of questionable, dude.
Well, she
especially with the heart.
Yeah. Well, she didn't write it. She probably answered him, yes, of course, and he made a stencil out of it and tattooed it on himself.
If he's a TYT fan, you go further down his arm and you see documents, live sex. Wait a minute, I got that here. Now I'm not playing that enough for you guys.
You're
here.
not. That's my favorite one.
Yeah. come on.
Aside. Documents.
Look, on days like this when I have to travel, I play with fire. I make it to the airport at the last second. I like jump onto the plane. You know, I'm Bruce Willising it or whatever, right? But it's so worth it because I don't know. I love doing the show. Come on.
Documents
For live sex.
live sex.
Touch me on my studio.
Come on. All right. We still haven't seen the first TYT tattoo. I'm not encouraging it. I'm just saying, okay?
Would you get a TYT tattoo?
That's a good question. I'm not a big, you guys know, I'm not a big fan of tattoos. But TYT logo on like my, my kick and try. That might be kind of badass. All right, well, I'll put some thought behind it. This girl I know, she got a giant tattoo over the weekend. And it led me to a conclusion. It's over.
What?
Okay, people under 30. Just tattoo central. Okay.
Really?
I love my conclusions. Don't you love them?
What does that even mean, though? People under 30 tattoo central.
Tattoo central.
So all people under 30 get tattoos?
Like a million of them.
You're
Like they're
insane.
averaging 12 apiece.
You're insane.
Okay. No, it's over.
You know,
tattoos.
the good thing is Grandpa Jank finally woke up, but Grandma Anna still is sleeping.
Yeah.
Really? Really? We had no idea. Oh, there's this new, hey, Jesus, there's this new thing going around. People are inking. They're putting artwork on their bodies. It never goes away. What do you do?
It's crazy, dog. Crazy. Has anybody watched an NBA game lately? Is there a part of a body by any NBA player left uncovered with tattoos? Is there a single NBA player left that doesn't have at least one tattoo? Maybe Pau Gasol. I haven't seen any on him.
Does Steve Nash have a tattoo? He has a broken nose, but does he have a tattoo?
He's got a lot of other things he's got to worry about.
No, it's part of not my theory, but I was saying it before. Like it was so off limits before. It's going to be the point where this generation, it's tattoo generation. I've always said that before, but then you're going to have elected officials because it's impossible not to. Everybody has a tattoo now. It's over. I mean, it's no longer going to be like the political scandal. Oh my God, he has a tattoo on his arm.
Yeah, that ship has sailed. The only question is, we're going to find out, 12 years from now, oh, that guy running for the GOP has a tattoo on his butt that says "blow me," and what are we going to do about that, et cetera, et cetera. It's funny that you got left behind because your entire generation is tats.
You know what I mean, I've talked about my views on tattoos before. Like, I don't mind them on other people, but I view my body as a temple. And I know that sounds I know that sounds so stupid, but no, I love my body. Why I don't want to taint it with a tattoo.
No, look, I'm just old school. That's how I am. That's how I believe. I'm from the old school. And in the old school, it doesn't turn me on. So when I see it in women, I'm not buying it. Okay, and I love you, but I'm not buying it. But I will be as merciful as Anna. Yes, I see how it looks good on some people. Right. If
if you're smart about it.
No. Okay. Like I don't want to get too gay about it, but not that there's anything wrong with it. But the two that you guys have, the JR and Jesus have, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they are cool. And I think, look, and this is going to sound terrible because I feel like I'm putting women's rights back a little bit, but I think it's different for men. Like I think it's different for men as when you put it on women, it just looks different. It has a different feel. I like the feminine, fragile, sweet look.
I don't think you're saying things that are that controversial. I agree with that.
Like,
I want women to look more feminine and tats look a little masculine, and so on a guy, sometimes tats make sense depending on the tat where you have it. Look at me with a tat, please. Okay, but for women, it's not my thing. But now the younger generation probably thinks that's really sexy. It depends on what you grew up with,
Yeah.
So, I see a guy with too many tattoos, and I think he's a
Long-legged Mac Daddy.
We haven't busted that one out in a while. All right, what's next?
Okay, Jesse James had an interview with ABC's Nightline, and Good Morning America decided to air a little snippet of the interview, and we have it for you guys. So.
All right, fun.
What'd you tell her?
I just told her basically everything. you know, that I had affairs outside of our marriage.
Did she have any idea any of this was going on, or did this hit her like a ton of bricks?
I think she's had her suspicions, you know, in the past, but, you know, I lied my way out of it. You know, I lied to everyone about everything, even to myself.
James decided it was time to regain control of his life, so he checked himself into rehab.
What did you tell Sandra when you were going in?
I just told her I was going to get some help, and I wanted to make sure that she would take care of Sonny.
And what did she say to you?
No problem, okay. And she told me she was proud of me.
But while in rehab, his reputation took another hit when Us Weekly ran a photo of him giving a Nazi salute.
I think out of anything, this is why I'm doing this interview the most, because, you know, dealing with losing my marriage and my son and embarrassing everyone and decimating my life, but to be called a racist on top of that it makes me really sad seeing the photo and the way I look. I don't even remember taking the photo, but it was just, I can tell by the look on my face, it was a joke that was funny then, probably for a minute, but then looking at it in the context of now in my life, it's not funny.
Now, Jesse James says he's lost two of the things he loves most in the world, his wife and the baby they spent 4 years waiting for.
When did you find out that you were getting Louis?
We found out around Christmas time, and we got him on New Year's Day.
Why New Orleans? Specifically, why a black child?
I didn't care. Didn't care what color he was. My only prerequisite for adopting a baby, I want the baby that needs us the most.
How did you feel when you saw the cover of People magazine and it's all about Sandra adopts Louis and he's going to have her name and not yours?
It made me sad, but I realized why things have to be done in a certain way.
What was it like being at home, being a family with him?
To see her in the role of mother is like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I mean, she's like a fish to water. As soon as she put that baby in her hands, it was automatic and amazing.
Wow. He says that even though he knows his wife is divorcing him, he hopes that they can maintain some kind of relationship so they can continue to co-parent the children.
Wow. All right. Yes.
I'm sorry. Before you guys get to all the Jesse James, Vicky Mabry is a mess.
Oh, wow.
Man. It looks like one eye is halfway open and she can only talk out of one side of her mouth like Rocky, and her head's tilted and her hair's... I thought they did these people up before they get on TV. This is ridiculous.
Man, JR just threw her under the bus. Man, I didn't see that coming. All of a sudden, boom, 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 boom.
I love it.
All right, fascinating. Okay, now on to Jesse James. Look, you know, I don't have the sympathy for him that Vicky Mabry, who got the scoop, does, right? Like, wow, oh, that's so touching and wow and all that stuff. And he, you know, he was like, oh, the color of the baby, I don't care, man. I probably preferred white, but she wanted black, I guess. I mean, that's what it sounded like, okay? But I'm putting words in his mouth, and I'm kidding, okay? But, you know, the funny thing is, after I watched the whole thing, I was like, you know what? You know, I get it. He wanted to have sex with other women. He did. It was stupid, and he screwed up the marriage. And the Nazi thing, I thought from the beginning, obviously he's joking around, I think, right? And I believe him when he says he's joking around. Dumb joke, yeah, but, you know, do I think that makes him a racist or a Nazi? No, I don't think that. So in the end, I say, okay, it is what it is, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not I'm not giving him a pardon. But at the same time, I don't think, I'm going to allow him to go on with his life. Am I not merciful?
I feel like that's what his whole goal was in doing this interview and going out in the public and saying the things that he said. So he can get that pardon. You didn't give him a pardon, but get that little tiny bit of sympathy that you just gave him right now. Or understanding, that's a better word.
Right, but what's there not to give, though? What are you going to say? No, I don't understand you. I'm going to declare you a Nazi, a racist, a philanderer, a terrible guy, and in fact, I'm going to... I declare him to be an outlaw!
Yes, yes.
Okay, And so he would be the outlaw Jesse James. Okay. So, no, I hear you, and I know you want to strike back on behalf of all women who have been scorned. Okay. And I understand that. But I've already hit him for that. I just don't know what else to hit him for.
No, I see. I totally understand, and I actually agree with you. But what I found the most interesting about that interview is how he said that it was the Nazi picture that kind of took her over the edge, and she was done with him after that.
I like that, and I agree with him. That's would have bothered me the most as well, because he's saying, look, I get it. I was a douchebag to her. The other stuff is true, right? I did cheat with all these 18 different women, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not a Nazi, and that's a heavy charge on somebody. Or calling someone a racist is a heavy charge, right? So he wants to fight back against that, and that's good. So that's why I'm letting him continue with the rest of his life.
Are you not merciful?
I really believe I'm the most merciful guy there is.
By the way, I didn't know that was a quote from Gladiator.
Oh, yeah. I probably have it on here somewhere. Oh, yeah, boom.
Am I not merciful? Am I not merciful?
Man, he was good in that movie.
Oh, Joaquin Phoenix. That was a legendary role. Legendary. No, I'm not overstating it. You calm down. All right, we'll be back.